The Battle of Byeokjegwan was a battle fought on January 27, 1593, between the armies of the Ming dynasty led by Li Rusong, and the Japanese forces under Tachibana Moonshige, Yukita Hide, and Kobayakawa Takakage. As part of the Japanese invasion of Korea, it was the first field battle fought during the war between the two sides. Background: Li Rusong and the Ming army of 36,000 set out from Liaodong on December 25, 1592, in an effort of the Ming army to aid the Joseon dynasty, which had already largely been overrun by Japanese forces. Li was initially successful, and he retook Pyongyang in a one-day direct assault on January 8. He recaptured the major city of Kaesong not long after. The capital city of Seoul was the Ming forces' next target. Li began to send early scouting parties towards Seoul in late January. A few skirmishes occurred between the two sides. Li left behind a few thousand men to defend Pyongyang and Kaesong and set out for Seoul with his main force. Battle. Soon after retaking Pyongyang, Li also succeeded in retaking the major city of Kaesong on the 19th of January and met only minor resistance from the Japanese defenders. Overconfident with his recent success and possibly misled by false reports, Li Rusong advanced towards the capital city of Seoul with his allied army of 20,000 on January 21 of 1592. On January 26, the force ran into an unexpected confrontation at Byeokjegwan by a large Japanese formation of about 30,000. On the same morning, Li's advance party, under General Zha Dachau along with the Korean General Go Eun-bak, approached the Byeokjegwan area north of Seoul. The Japanese force became aware of the advance and Tachibana Moonshige sent out a small party of 500 to 600 men to lure the Ming army forward. The Ming party took the bait and attacked the Japanese party. The Ming advance party was soon met by Moonshige's main force coming in from the flanks and was forced to pull back, becoming trapped in the nearby hills. Li Rusong, upon hearing of the plight of his advance party, moved forward and tried to relieve his besieged scouts. He managed to meet up with his scouts around noon, only to be met with an even larger relief army from the Japanese side as other daimyo's forces from the area also converged on Byeokjegwan. Li Rusong was now trapped with his forces facing a Japanese army of between 30,000 to 40,000 men. They were again forced to try to defend themselves on a hill. The muddy field conditions and narrow nature of the area made it difficult for them to utilize their horses, so the force mostly dismounted and fought on foot. The Japanese forces advanced on the Ming position around 10 a.m. The initial attack by Yukita Hide's forces was pushed back by the Ming, and then came an all-out advance with Moonshige's force coming in from the right, Yukita Hide's force coming in from the front, and Kobayakawa Takakage's force coming in from the left. Moonshige's forces fired off a volley of Teppo before charging head-on into the Ming forces. The Ming forces were without their heavy equipment or infantry support, but were made up almost entirely of their most elite retinue warriors. The two sides clashed and the Ming generals themselves were forced to fight in hand-to-hand combat for most of the battle. Li Rusong's brother, Li Rumai, shot a samurai warrior at point-blank range as he was about to duel with his brother. One of the Ming officers, Li Yusheng, was killed while trying to defend Li Rusong. Several samurai of note also perished in the battle. The all-out brawl continued from 10 a.m. to midday, while Japanese forces sent several waves up against the Ming position and both sides took significant casualties. Around noon it started to rain, and the broken ground began to resemble a swamp, making the melee fighting difficult. Changing tactics, Kobayakawa drew back his samurai to allow a field of fire for his arquebus squads, which shot bullets into the mass of Chinese and Koreans. The Japanese then pursued the defeated Ming army back up the pass to its highest point, and after a few more hours of fighting, Kobayakawa ordered the advance to cease as darkness fell. The Japanese forces, not ready to commit to an all-out field battle with the Ming's main force, pulled back towards Seoul, and the Ming army, having taken heavy losses among their elite warriors, also pulled back towards Kaesong. Casualties. As with many battles in the Imjin War, the casualty figure is wildly different depending on the source. Lee Rosong first reported a casualty figure of 264 against a kill of 167 enemies to the chief overseer Song Ying-chang, though it was later blasted by other Ming officials back home of being faulty. An investigation concluded that the actual casualty figure was closer to the 2,000 range. The first Korean report on the battle relayed a story from a different Ming general that was not directly involved in the battle that the Ming lost 1,500 men while only killing a little more than 100 foe, while the Japanese record seemed to suggest that they lost 2,000–3,000 men while killing 6,000 men. One Japanese source written late in the Edo period claimed that the Ming lost 20,000 men. Given the nature of the battle and the maneuvers of both sides in the days and months after the battle, it could be estimated both sides lost between 2,000 to 5,000 men, though the Ming casualties were almost entirely among their elite retinues, which made the number more significant than it would appear. Other controversies. Although the official version of the story was that Lee Rosong and the Ming forces were misled by faulty Korean intelligence, some of the other Ming generals claimed that in fact it was Zha Dashao who misled Lee and the other Ming forces. Zha thought that the Japanese forces were on the verge of collapse, and thus a fast and sudden advance on their position would cause them to pull out of Seoul, and as the vanguard of the group, he would gain the largest share of the glory. The generals cited that almost all of them were caught by surprise by Lee's sudden departure the day before the battle, and scrambled to catch him. The battle and other disputes at Pyongyang and elsewhere led to an ever-increasing friction between the Ming officers of different origins. Aftermath. The Ming forces regrouped at Kaesong and advanced on Seoul again after 2 weeks. Though they only attempted to passively lay siege to the city for the remainder of the First War, the Japanese meanwhile attempted to dislodge a small Korean army which had showed up and occupied a nearby fortress, but suffered a devastating defeat in the siege of Hareju. Following the defeat, they made no further attempt to challenge the Ming forces sitting outside their walls. The stalemate continued for 3 months until the Japanese forces were unable to continue the war due to logistic difficulty, and pulled out of Seoul as part of the peace talk agreement with the Ming forces. The battle was the only major field battle of the First War between the Ming forces and the Japanese.